Yes.
Get ready to take control of your own financial destiny. It's time to build your dream business. Welcome to the Empowered Entrepreneur.
This just got exciting.
With your host, Spider Graham. Your education starts now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the broadcast. This is Spider. Hey, and this time I want to talk about something that I think is one of the most important topics we will ever discuss, and that is goal setting. Now, there's a lot that has been said about the power of setting goals, and I'm certain that a lot of you are really familiar and have your own goals and understand how this works. What I want to share with you today are some ideas for how to make your life better, to how to get from where you are today to where you really want to be, and to have a better sense of the path that will take you between these 2 points. Now, the challenge I think a lot of us face is that we have the tendency to kind of let real life just intervene. And I've often thought metaphorically that a lot of people are kind of like a leaf floating down a stream. You know, it falls in the water and it just kind of goes down and it's heading in the right direction, right? Down. But along the way, it just bumps into things. It hits rocks, it gets stuck in the embankment for a while, but it really has no control over its destiny. It is really going to go where the water takes it, and that's it. Now, in a lot of ways, that might be a comfortable life. That might be the kind of thing that you're saying, yes, this is fine. I'm perfectly happy going where fate takes me. But I think for most of us, we want to have some guidance and some control over what we accomplish, over what we do with our lives. We want to get to a certain point where we can look back and say, hey, I can see where I was and I see where I am today, and they're two very different places. And I've made progress in my life. I've done the things that I wanted to do. I've done things that were personally fulfilling. I've done things that helped me to grow my life and grow my business, etc. So in order to get away from just being a leaf floating down the river, we need to find a way to control ourselves, to take ourselves where we want to go. So instead of being leaves, we're like water bugs who can skitter across the surface of the water and go from point to point, even go upstream if we need to, because if that's where our goal is, that's where we need to be. Now, apart from the metaphor, the challenge that a lot of us face, of course, is that we already have busy lives. We have things that are going on, and it's kind of hard to get to the stuff we really want to do, and as a result, we often don't do it. And one of the biggest challenges, and more philosophical than anything else, is when you talk to people about what happens when people get old and die. One of the answers that often comes up with number one on the regret list is, I wish I had done the things that I wanted to do in my life. I wish I had made these things happen. It's kind of sad in a lot of ways to realize after all the time that you've had that you didn't do what you wanted to do with the time because you had other obligations. You were raising a family, you had a job you needed to do or go to, you had all this stuff that was going on in your life. But guess what? You are the one driving the bus. At the end of the day, if you change your mindset away from, I'm going to go wherever the river takes me, to, I'm in charge here, I'm the one who's deciding where I'm going to go, then it's going to start to change your life in some pretty amazing ways, and frankly, ways that you're never going to undo, and that's a good thing. So that being said, let's talk about the idea of setting goals. Let's talk about the process and some of the best practices to kind of help you along in your way. One of the biggest aspects of setting goals that really helps us get to where we want, there are actually two factors. One of them is being able to have a vision for the future. So if I said to you, okay, I want you to look ahead in your life right now, 10 years into the future. Okay, 10 years from now, what does your life look like? What do your relationships look like? What does your family life look like? What does your career look like? Where do you live? What do you do with your time? How much money do you make? How happy are you? All these things are important to us. So we start to look at this and say, okay, in 10 years, this is kind of what I want to have in my life. Well, it's a fantastic jumping off point because now that you have this picture, you can start to think about the elements that make this picture happen. So we start to look at separate things. All right, where do you want to live? Well, where do you live now? Do you want to live in the same place 10 years from now? And you say, heck no, Spider, I'm living in a crappy apartment with 2 roommates. This is not my dream. Fantastic. So at least you have some motivation and you have a vision for the future and you say, this is not where I want to live. Of course, this brings up the question, where would you want to live? In 10 years, what would you consider an ideal place to be in your life, and where would you want to be living? Well, I'd like to buy a small home in this part of the world, in this part of the country, or in this town. Okay, if you can be that precise, then now you have something really to hang your hat on. You can go and say, okay, in 10 years, one of my goals is to not be living where I'm currently living, but to be living someplace else. Well, let me ask you a question about the house. What kind of house? What can you tell me about it? What are the amenities? What are the things that you like about this house? What is it about the community you like? Okay. Are you close to water? Is that something you want? Do you live in the mountains or do you live in the plains? Where is it that you live? Close to skiing? Whatever it is, what is your criteria for why you want to live here? Is it just the house or is it the location of the house? So now that we start to home in on this a little bit, get a much better sense of what we're doing, we really have that visual that we can start to plan for. So I say to myself, okay, I'm living in this apartment today. I don't like this. It's okay. It's fine. It's fun, whatever, but that's not my life. So now I start to look forward to this other thing. Now, that's just one aspect of our future. We might say, okay, how much money are you making right now? And how much money would you like to be making? And by the way, I think it's a very important question to ask yourself, why? If you're saying, well, I don't make a lot of money right now, and in 10 years I'm hoping to make a lot more money, well, two things have to happen. One is you have to ask yourself why. Why do you want more money? And I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying having more money is a bad thing, but you have to ask yourself, why do I want more money? How is that going to change my life and help me to do the things I want to do? Well, you might say, well, I want to be able to afford a nicer house, and I want to be able to afford a nicer car, and I want to be able to put some money aside so I can put my children through college, and I want to be able to do a whole bunch of things that money's going to make my life do better. Okay, now, how much money is that? Well, how do I know? Well, you're going to look at what you make today, and you're going to say, okay, if I'm saying right now I'm not making as much as I want to make, how much money should I be making? And obviously, it's hard to project 10 years. You start to look at your lifestyle, but you start to think. You start to find this number. You start to find something that you believe that you can achieve and that you're comfortable with. And now you're saying, okay, I understand how much money I want to make. I'm understanding where I want to live. What about my career? Well, this is where I am today. And what do I want my career to look like? And we run through the same process. And we do this for all these different elements in our life. So now we have a list. We have a list that pertains to where we want to live, maybe what kind of car we want to drive, what kind of lifestyle we want to have, how much money we want to have in the bank, what we want to be able to do with our family, all these things. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to do, to sit down. And by the way, just give yourself permission. Sit down, give yourself a few minutes by yourself, have a cup of coffee, have a glass of wine, whatever works for you, and give yourself permission to just daydream. Daydreaming is one of the most underrated and most powerful forces in the world, in my opinion. And every teacher who told you not to daydream in high school kind of missed the point. That's what the future is about. We have to dream it in order to live it. So you're going to daydream. You're going to sit down and you're going to say, who do I want to become? And by the way, we're only looking 10 years down the road. Maybe you want to even look further and say, what does 20 years look like? What does 30 years look like? What am I going to be doing when I'm 75 years old? Okay? And we can also back it off a little bit and say, okay, that's my 10-year plan. What does my 5-year plan look like? Or what is my 1-year plan? Because your goals are not just set up, well, in 10 years, this is what's going to happen. You have goals that you're going to accomplish in the next year. You have goals that you're going to accomplish in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, etc. So you use the same process that you go through this questioning and guessing and dreaming. So finally, you have some visuals. You have some ideas. And by the way, and it may sound really hokey, but I want you to do it anyway, is that, once again, you can keep this stuff incredibly private. You don't have to share your dreams with anybody else unless you find somebody that you think is going to support your dreams and visions. I'm very serious about this. Sometimes turning to a loved one saying, hey, I have this real dream, they may just say, well, yeah, but do you think that's practical? Do you think you're going to be able to do that? I mean, you might end up screwing it up. You might end up disappointing yourself. Okay? Yeah, you might, but you might also succeed. So I don't want you to spend a lot of time putting doubt in here. This is your dream. You're allowed to have the fantasy. And we'll turn it into reality as we go along. And so now you have this dream and you put it in a notebook. Okay? And by the way, I have a notebook and I cut pictures out. I say, hey, this is the house I want. And I put it in there and I write next to it why I want this house, what my dream is. I write it down and I make it concrete. Why do I want to have this? How is this going to make my life better? Okay? What kind of relationships do I want to have? Whether it's romantic relationships, relationships with my friends, relationships with my children, whatever it is. What is it I want? So now I'm getting things that are much more concrete, and I have a place that I've written them down. By the way, writing your dreams down is the first step to making them real. It's incredibly important. And by the way, it's not just write them down, put them in a notebook, and never look at it again. What's incredibly important is that you keep reviewing these dreams. You keep pulling this thing out. Do it daily, do it weekly, I don't care, but you have to do it on a regular basis. And you look at the dreams and you say, is this still a dream? Because guess what happens sometimes? Dreams, like everything else, refine over time, or they change. And you may look at it and say, you know what? I was thinking I really wanted to have a house that looked like this at this location, but the more I think about it, I'm not sure that's really my dream anymore. I'm thinking maybe a house at this location, and that looks like this and has these amenities would be more of what I want, more of what makes me happy. So go ahead, feel free to change your dreams. You're allowed to do it. But the important thing is to have them, is to have something written down. By the way, dreams are basically their goals, or goals or dreams that are unrealized at this point. They're the same thing. So you have dreams, you have goals. It's something you want. It's something you desire for your future. And now you are able to look at this book, or sometimes people will put it on a board. They'll create a piece of poster board, they'll put everything up on it, and they'll just put it on the wall. They'll say, that's my future. That's what I'm aiming for. And they look at it, and they review it, and they dream it, and they fantasize about it, and they have passion for it, and they want it. And that's the amazing, amazing thing, is to have something that you want that much. And it's so empowering. And yes, sometimes it will frustrate the hell out of you because you really want it now. You don't want to wait. But guess what? That's part of the journey. And wanting it is the first step. So now we have some goals that are set. We've sat down and we've had a meeting with ourselves, and we asked ourselves some important questions, and we have a better understanding of what we want to do with our future. We've written our goals down. Fantastic. Now comes the hard part. How do we make these dreams happen? Well, there are a lot of philosophies, certainly when it comes to achieving goals. And the best, I believe, is based upon the idea of the ancient Chinese saying that says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And everything that we do is done in small increments. There's a great phrase that I love that says, no great thing was created suddenly. Well, if you're setting meaningful goals, if you're setting worthwhile goals, then they're probably not the kinds of things you're going to achieve suddenly. Okay? It's not a matter of, goal, get out of bed tomorrow morning. All right, fantastic, get up and celebrate. If you have a hard time getting out of bed in the first place, this might be a worthy goal. But the reality is, for most of us, that's not really much of a goal to go for. We want something meaningful. We want something that's really going to mean an awful lot when we achieve it. We have to look at where we are today, and we have to look at where we want to be, and we have to be realistic about how long it's going to take us to get from point to point. All right, so right now you make $30,000 a year, and your goal is to make $1 million a year. Is it possible? Absolutely. Lots of people make $1 million a year. But you have to ask yourself, how am I going to do it? Am I going to do it next year, suddenly go from $30,000 to $1 million? Maybe. But chances are you're going to need to figure out over time how to grow your nest egg, how to make that money happen for you. So give yourself the time to do it. And then you have to be able to sit back and say, okay, let's be realistic about where I am today, and let's be more pragmatic about what it is I need to accomplish and the schedule over time that I'm going to use to accomplish it. And then start to identify the little steps. Now, once again, if we look at where we are today and we look at our goal as being something that's on the horizon, off in the distance, something we're aiming toward, then at least we're heading in the right direction. But it's important, and we talked about this, we talked about setting expectations. A lot of times when we set goals, it's part of the daydream that we think that it's going to be a straight shot. Here I am, there's my goal, it's a paved road, and there are unicorns and rainbows all along, and it's a beautiful day every day in Fantasyville. And the reality of our lives is it's never like that. And the reality is we're going to have these goals, and we're going to be heading on, and sometimes it's like walking through a swamp. And it's going all over the place, and every other step we lose our boots, and it's hard, and it's a struggle. Because that's what life is like. It's never super easy to achieve something we really, really want. And that's okay, because that makes it all the more meaningful when we get there. It makes it much more personal, and it makes it much more valuable. So expect that your goals are not going to be easy to reach. Not impossible. We're not saying impossible. We're saying challenging. So now we're in a situation where we say, okay, what can I do? Let's talk about the idea of a house. Okay. Now, being able to have a house is often going to tie into our purchasing power, right? How much money do we make? How much money do we have? Can we afford the house? So we can start to think about where we want to be. Now, we have some fantasies going here, right? We have some dreams that are saying, I want to live here and I want to live in this kind of house. Well, one of the things you can do is start looking at houses around where you live right now to get a better sense of the kinds of houses you like, the kind of amenities, right? I'm not saying you want to go and have a realtor tag around after you all day long saying, is this house for you? And say, yeah, I'm thinking of buying a house. You can go to open houses. You can go to friends' houses. You can drive by houses and look at them and get a better sense of what you want and what you like. So part of it is making sure that you kind of solidify your vision. But the other side of it is, okay, what can I realistically expect to buy for myself based upon my current lifestyle? Once again, let's talk about the finances because they obviously tie together. I'm making $30,000 a year. How much house could I afford with $30,000 a year? Well, probably not so much. So how do I figure out how to make more money? Because that's going to tie in with reaching my home buying goal. So now you have these two goals which are co-joined because they need to be. I have to make more money so that I can afford more of a house. We have to work at our goals. We have to look at them separately, but we also have to combine them together. We have to look at our life as a whole. And everything that you do, every little step that you take toward figuring out how to make more money or toward figuring out how to reach any goal, be a better person, lose weight, get better toned at the gym, whatever it is, it's all little steps. So now you figure out what those little steps are. Okay, all right, I want to lose weight. Well, guess what? You're going to lose it the old-fashioned way, a little bit at a time, right? But not even going to lose it a pound at a time. We're going to lose it a quarter pound at a time. We're going to change our life in some meaningful way. We're going to eat better. We're going to exercise better, and we're going to lose weight a little bit at a time. Pretty much the same way we gained it. Okay, we're not going to wake up one morning and say, well, I want to lose 30 pounds. I think next week would be good. Not happening. So we have to be realistic, and we have to make sure that we do all of the little things that will allow us to get there. So losing weight, getting in shape, making money, finding a great relationship, all these things start with having a vision, but they end up with having a process, having something that we do that's very specific that will allow us to get to those goals. A big part of this, once again, is to constantly review your goals, to constantly put them in your mind and remind yourself every single day, I'm not just winging it here. I have a plan. I'm doing this on purpose. And now we have an opportunity to make our lives go where we want them to go. We have an opportunity to actually declare what our destiny is going to be and make it happen. And I know it sounds really simple when you put it that way, but guess what? That's how it happens. Is it simple in reality? Not always. But if you constantly are saying, this is my goal, this is what I'm focused on, this is what I need to do next, and you keep coming back and you see the progress and you chart your progress, you look at where you are, and a year from now you say, hey, you know what? I was able to pick up some part-time work. I was able to do something different. I got a little bit of a gig where I sold some stuff on the side. You know what? I didn't make $30,000 last year. I made $35,000. Wow, that's awesome. And the next year you say, hey, now I made $45,000 because I figured out other ways that I could make money. I figured out other ways that I could contribute and increase my value and worth in the marketplace. And I'm on my way, $45,000. And by the way, by the time I get to the point 10 years down the road where I want to be living in that dream house, I may be making $150,000 a year because I'm figuring it out. And I'll be able to say, yeah, I can afford this house now. I'm making enough money to make the payments. I'm making enough money to put a good down payment on it, okay? But that's how it starts. So it's progressive. It's small steps that get us there. Now, there's a lot we can say about goal setting. There's a lot we can say that ties in with other aspects of our professional lives. But for today, I just really wanted to talk about some of the basics here. I think it's incredibly important to give yourself permission to do two things. First of all, to believe that you can control your future, and you will find that you can. It sounds magical, and sometimes it sounds fantastic, but in my experience, if you just sit down and declare to yourself, this is what I want my future to look like, and this is how I'm going to get there, you're going to blow yourself away with what you're able to accomplish. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Once again, Spider Graham, thank you so much for joining me, as always, and I hope to see you real soon.
For more free resources and advice for entrepreneurs, visit spidergraham.com and become a subscriber today.